Okay, more properties. So we've had two properties of exponents. The first one was the multiplication. If you've got the same base, what you do is you add the tops. If you've got something raised to 2 powers, you multiply. And then, well, I guess we added in the property of 0 and negative exponents. Remember, if you had one, these are all going to be combined into different problems now. So if you had x to the third times x to the negative 7th, that would be x to the negative 4th, because the rule is you add these up. 3 plus negative 7 is negative 4. And then the rule of negative exponents is if it's negative, it's on top, you move it to the bottom. If it's on the bottom, you move it up. So that'd be 1 over x to the 4th. So the division property is just the opposite of the multiplication property. So if you're dividing two things with the same base, what do you suppose you do to the exponents? Subtract. Okay, so here's the example. Same base, so you subtract. 7 minus 5 is 2. Okay? Now, an easier way to think of this probably is by canceling. If you think of it this way, it's going to make the tougher problems easier to do. There's 5 3's on the bottom, there's 7 3's on the top, all multiplied together. All 5 of these would cancel with 5 on top, leaving you with 2 on top. So that's why it's 3 squared. If you had something like this, okay, they're the same base. So if you use this property, 7 minus 13 is negative 6, right? And then you've got to change it. It'd be 1 over x to the 6th. If you use the canceling idea, it saves you a step. There's 7 here and there's 13 here. There's more on the bottom, right? So all of these are going to cancel out, leaving you with just a 1 on top. And when you take away 7 on the bottom, it leaves you with 6 on the bottom. You end up with the same answer, it just saves you a step. Okay, understand the canceling idea?
Yes.
They cancel each other out. Okay, so again, if you go by that, there's 3 on the bottom, so take 3 off the top, we'll just leave you 1. So it's just 8 to the first, which is just 8. Here what happens when you subtract. To cancel, you get 0, so it's 1. Anything over itself is always 1. If you did it this way, you'd get 7 to the 0, which is also 1. Here, we can combine the tops by using our properties we've learned before. When it's the same base, you add. If there's nothing there, it's a 1, so that would be 5 to the 4th. And again, I don't know if you agree with me, is this the canceling idea? You guys all understand that? It's quicker to me, I think. There's more 5's on the bottom. There's 1 more 5 on the bottom. So it'd be just 1/5. Does everyone follow that, or am I just jumping ahead too fast? Because you would subtract 4 minus 5 is negative 1, and then you would have to put it underneath, and you don't need the 1 there, so it's just 5 to the first. So here, the same thing. Remember when you multiply fractions, you just put it over 1. It's top times top, bottom times bottom. So it's actually just x to the 4th over x to the 7th. There's 3 more x's on the bottom, so all of these would cancel, and then there'd be 3 left on the bottom. So this is nothing new. We've already learned when you have a fraction raised, you got to do it to both of them, including that. But what this means then is you've got the negative 8 to the negative third over 5 to the negative third. Since this is an odd amount, nothing's gonna happen to this. The negative, ever remember that? If this was a 2, even if it's negative, it would end up canceling out. So, since these are both negatives, you just gotta flip them both. That's gotta go to the bottom, this has gotta go up. So it'd be 5 to the third, and there's still a negative there. 8 to the third, which would be negative 125 over 512. Simplifying expressions. Now it's combining all the stuff we've learned, and again, this is about as tough as they get, as extensive. This is just a whole bunch of combining all the properties into one problem. Now again, the easiest thing, the way to solve these is just to think of canceling. So if you look at the numbers first, do you want to do it in steps? Do the numbers and then the letters until you're done with everything that's in common. So, of the numbers, there's a 3, a 12, and a 4 on the bottom. You could cross cancel this 4 with this 12, right? And it would become 3. So, the only numbers left are a 3 times a 3 on top, which means there's going to be a 9 on top. Then look at the letters. Look at the X's. On the bottom, that would make x to the 5. On the top, x to the 4. So when you cancel that, there's one more x on the bottom. So you put an x on the bottom. And then the y's, there are no y's on the bottom, but on top there's 4 and 2, which makes. So if you split them up into like steps like that, it's not so hard to do. Here, everything is to the 5th, which means you got to take everything to the 5th, all of them. So it'd be 2 to the 5th, x to the 10th, y to the 15th. Because remember, when it's a power to a power, you multiply. 2 to the 5th is 32, x to the 10th, y to the 15th. Once you get these properties down, they're pretty easy to do, I think. Do you agree? Some of them. Okay, so when we evaluate, you are going to want to write fractions in simplest form. So here, that's the same base. There's more on top. How many more? 3. So 4 to the third, you can use your calculator, is 64. This one is a little different. This one is in parentheses, so that negative is going to disappear because it's an even amount. This one's not in parentheses, so that negative is going to stay there. So when I know my answer is going to be negative, and then what's 7/8 over 7/8? 1. It's the same thing over itself, so you cancel. Here, since it's a negative, you could do one of 2 ways. To me, the easiest way is if it's negative, you move it up. And then that makes 2 to the 10th. So 2 to the 10th is 1,024. The other way you can do it is use the subtraction property. 2 take away negative 8 is 10. So you get the same answer, it's just sometimes when you subtract, people make errors. This one, it's a fraction. All of it is to the 4th, so you got to take 3 to the 4th and 4 to the 4th. 3 to the 4th is 81 over 256.
You don't have to solve them.
Yeah, they're solved. Oh, no, you can leave it as a fraction. It does say to simplify, but nothing, no, that one's, nothing goes into both of those, so that is simplified. Usually the only time they'll simplify is if these two numbers would simplify. So then the ones with just the variables, we gotta take 2 to the 6th and y squared to the 6th. 2 to the 6th is 64, y 12 just stays there. It should have had more negatives in here, but that's alright. When it's written like this, that means that's over 1. So if this were written out, it's this times this, it's 2x to the 5th over x to the 11th. The 2, nothing will cancel, so it just stays on top. But the x's, there's 6 more x's on the bottom. So it's 2 over x to the 6. These 5 would cancel, and take 5 off of there would leave you with 6 on the bottom. And then this one you're going to want to do in steps. Cross cancel any numbers you can. The 6 goes into 24 4 times. So then the numbers, it's a 5 times 4, both on top, so that makes 20 on top. Then the x's, I've got 10 of them on the bottom. Oops. And on top, I've got squared into the 5th, there's 7 of them. So 3 where? On the bottom. There's 3 more on the bottom. And then the y's, I've got 5 here and 3 on the bottom. So that means there's 2 more on top. You guys got it, do you think? Okay,